Republican senators are in all-out revolt right now when Donald Trump just admitted he doesn't know how to stop them. Now, the passage of the War Powers Resolution, which seems imminent at this point, would be a tremendous blow to Donald Trump, and it is why he is panicking for several reasons. Obviously, the implication on his ability to expand his authoritarian regime through militarization in forever wars that are pointless outside of the fact that they help Donald Trump concentrate his power would be very much limited. But also, it would be another loss in a series of losses for Donald Trump that have him so furious, and that is what we are going to get into today. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into panicked Donald Trump's reaction, I want to start with one of the Republicans who's really going on the offensive against him and in part leading this vote, and that's Rand Paul, who called out Donald Trump on his maybe former favorite podcast when he said this with Joe Rogan.
So is the argument that they want regime change that these cartels are working with Maduro? And that's why we blow them up?
That's sort of the argument, but I don't think the cartels and the drugs are really important. It's about regime change because
okay, but if it's about regime change, why blow up the drug boats?
Because they need a drug predicate. They want to say this isn't war. It is kind of war, and we're going to take people as if it's war, but it's not really war. It was an arrest warrant. And they've actually persuaded some otherwise good people in my caucus to say, well, normally I would be against bombing another nation's capital and removing the leader. Oh, but he was indicted for the indictment. Most people don't know this. Part of the indictment is for drugs, but he's breaking a U.S. law. How do we indict foreigners in their country? They haven't broken law in our country for breaking a law. But other than drugs, they've also indicted Maduro for possessing or conspiring to possess machine guns. And it's like, what leader in the world doesn't have security guards with machine guns? We have machine guns.
Wait a minute. Did Maduro personally have illegal machine guns? And illegal how? Is it illegal internationally? Like, what does that mean?
It means absolutely nothing.
But that's crazy. That means
completely
how
insane.
many people in Texas have machine guns? You could legally have them here.
Of course, Donald Trump is just looking for a pretext in Venezuela. Donald Trump doesn't actually care about drug trafficking. He pardoned a drug trafficker. Oh, we don't even need to get into that argument, but Trump is looking for a couple of things right now. Any excuse for him to further militarize the United States. It's why he has a standing police force in the form of ICE, which is really just Donald Trump's Frankenstein monster come to life. It's the worst parts of Donald Trump, his worst inclinations, all his vitriol, the bile he spills, has come together to be this policing force that will go after anyone and doesn't keep anyone safe. But Donald Trump wants further militarization of the United States. He also wants a narrative to unite behind, to say that he's keeping us safe with these strikes, that he's doing whatever he possibly can for strategic purposes to prevent, Russia or China from gaining power, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially when he says this about Greenland after his meeting really just fizzled out, and his kind of trying to play off an invasion. It's interesting given the context of this vote that is imminent, but listen to what Trump said before we get into how things have blown up in the Senate.
Mr. President, on NATO, right now it sounds like you are saying that you would potentially acquire Greenland by force. That would be a NATO country.
Are you saying that?
Are you saying that? Would you do that?
No, you're saying that.
Would you
I
acquire
didn't
that by
say it.
force
No,
right
you're
now?
telling me that that's what I'm going to do. You don't know what I'm going to do.
So what are the options?
Your
then?
network
Because
doesn't know either.
The Danish foreign minister said that there's still fundamental differences after the meeting with Rubio and with the vice president. Are you willing to leave the NATO alliance in order to get what you want with Greenland? What are the options right now?
Well, I wouldn't be telling you what I'm willing to do, certainly. I'm not going to give up options, but it's very important. Greenland's very important for the national security, including of Denmark. And the problem is not a thing that Denmark can do about it if Russia or China wants to occupy Greenland. But there's everything we can do. You found that out last week with Venezuela. There's everything we can do about things such as that. Not going to happen.
So clearly Trump recognizes that the Greenland invasion would be unpopular, that world leaders are uniting to tell him, no, what are you thinking? You big dummy. Donald Trump essentially wants to go to war with Europe, and our allies for almost the past century, which is an interesting move even for Donald Trump. But listen to how he talks about the strategic motivation of this, right? Donald Trump says, well, we got to stop China, which we haven't done in any capacity. Donald Trump is actually selling out to the Chinese, whether it be chip manufacturing, any other way that he's doing so, or Russia. Maybe we should support our ally if we're talking about strategic territory in Ukraine, which is right next to Russia. He doesn't make a good case for any of this, which makes it clear, and we know, that Donald Trump just likes the threat. Right? The threat of invading Greenland. It's something to distract the news media. It's something to make him appear tough and strong and like he has his caucus together, that he has his party together. But he doesn't, and even Donald Trump and John Thune are now admitting it. Thune, not sure I have votes to stop War Powers Act vote today. Senate Republican leaders are eyeing a procedural maneuver on the Venezuela War Powers resolution that could spare Donald Trump an embarrassing defeat. Why it matters. Trump went ballistic after 5 Republicans voted with Democrats to move forward with the War Powers resolution last week. Now GOP leaders are pressuring the defectors and considering blocking the bill from coming to the floor. All eyes are on Senator Josh Hawley and Todd Young, both of whom have said they've received calls from Trump and have declined to say how they plan to cast their final votes. So again, we have the Trump power implication here with how this War Powers resolution would restrict his action, but it's also just the political humiliation. Donald Trump has put out lots of calls to lots of members of Congress on recent bipartisan legislation, and where has it gotten him? Nowhere. We saw, 17 Republicans jump on board to support Democrats and looking to extend the ACA subsidies that Donald Trump killed to finance giant tax cuts for the richest people in the history of our country. Of course, it was an almost unanimous vote to release the Epstein files, both in the House and the Senate, with one Republican defector, which because we still don't really know his case. He just loves what Trump and Epstein love. It's kind of gross. I'm not even going to make a joke about it. We're not going to look into that too much. But Donald Trump has been taking losses all over the place. And so you also have the implication of a man struggling to cement his power, also losing it in his own party. And I think that this is especially a very interesting place for Trump to be losing a vote, right? Because it says something ideological, if I could speak, now I sound like Donald Trump, about MAGA, right? It is an ideological shift happening. Now, I don't believe that Republicans all of a sudden are going to become the No New Wars party, because we did that once and it was a lie. So that's not happening. But what it will raise is an ideological question about interventionism and whether we want to get involved with endless wars or interfering with countries we have no business changing their governments or trying to steal their resources. It poses a big question that Republicans have to ask and they have to debate within themselves. And what's so important about a debate like that, what's so important about that question being raised, is it removes one thing from the conversation: Donald Trump. If you are having an ideological conversation, you cannot include a man who has no ideology but what is best for me in any given moment, what I want, how I can distract. Donald Trump is not a man of substance or thought or any principled view. So any ideological conversation happening within MAGA fundamentally excludes Donald Trump. It cuts him out of the conversation. It removes the idea that he's running for president again. I know it sounds ridiculous to even have to say that it dismisses the Trump 2028 excitement within MAGA, but it cuts him out. When they start having real conversations that Democrats have forced their hands on, it leads all these people to reevaluate, well, what do these midterms look like? What's it going to look like come 2028? That's what Thomas Massey has been saying. Consider life without Donald Trump. And Donald Trump did not think that Republicans would be considering that so soon. He really didn't. And that removes his power. That removes his ability to hold his party to do whatever he wants. Right? If the collective action is no longer get on board with Donald Trump and you're good, but save yourself and try to plot a future, especially in the Senate when all these guys are maybe thinking about running for president or something else, then yeah, It's bad for Donald Trump in so many different ways. And again, this comes as he's losing more and more, as Rachel Maddow broke down right here.
This did not get enough attention, but did you see this? Look, headline: Congress is rejecting Trump's steep budget cuts to science. Lead: Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs that President Trump called for last year. Trump is trying to cut the National Science Foundation 56%. Congress is now saying they will cut it less than 1%. Trump wanted to slash NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. You know, the weather. Congress's budget for NOAA is no cuts to NOAA, flat funding for NOAA. Trump wants to cut basic research, which has been the lifeblood of American technological innovation since World War II. Trump wants to cut basic research more than 33%. Congress instead is bumping up their budget, bumping up the budget for basic research by more than 2%. Trump is demanding all these cuts to science, and Congress is saying no, and this is a bipartisan thing. This started in the Senate as a bipartisan agreement. Last week, the House voted for it as well. I know it's like muscle memory to assume, A, that Congress does nothing, and B, if they ever defy that rule and do something, it's always something bad. But that is changing a little bit here. And it's changing all against Trump. And Republicans in the House are down to such a slim margin there now that if every Democrat is present, at the moment, Republicans can only afford one defection on any given vote. They can only give up one Republican vote in the House and still pass things that their leadership supports. And they know they're going to get walloped in the midterms. And with moderate Democrat Mary Peltola announcing today that she's going to run against the unpopular Republican Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan, that means that Democrats are getting pretty close to a shot at taking over the Senate in the midterms as well. They've got a shot at taking over the Senate, in addition to the near certainty that they will take over the House. We've got the courts pushing back harder and harder, and now apparently losing that sense of shock they had that the administration really is just blatantly breaking the law all the time. The courts are finally getting it and pushing back and seeming to understand what it is they're up against. We've got the Congress, believe it or not, in some ways pushing back, while simultaneously Republicans are losing any hope of hanging on to power in Congress. It looks like the Democrats will be taking over.
It has been L after L after L after L for Donald Trump, and it will only continue to get worse. And we are going to cover it on this show, and if you want to support that as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.